Baboushka and the Three Kings. A Russian folk tale retold by Ruth Robbins. An old Russian woman's missed opportunity to follow the wise men leads to a lifetime of service that becomes her own path to finding the Christ child. In the vast expanse of the Russian countryside, where snow lay thick as wool blankets across the rolling steppes, and the wind sang ancient songs through forests of birch and pine, there stood a meager wooden hut at the edge of a small village. This was the home of Baboushka, an old woman who lived alone with her simple possessions and her daily routines. Baboushka had outlived her husband and children, but she was never idle. From sunrise to sunset, she tended to her household tasks, sweeping the earthen floor, mending clothes, preparing her humble meals, and creating small crafts to trade in the village. Her life was modest, but ordered, filled with the steady rhythm of daily work that kept her hands busy and her mind occupied. Though her hut was simple, she took comfort in her routines, finding peace in the familiar pattern of each day's labor. On a particularly clear winter night, when the stars seemed to hang so low they might be plucked like fruit from the sky, Baboushka was disturbed from her evening spinning by the sound of approaching travelers. Through her small window, she could see lights moving across the snowy landscape, not the flickering light of torches, but something steady and bright that seemed to emanate from the travelers themselves. As the procession drew nearer, Baboushka's eyes widened in amazement. 3 magnificent figures rode toward her cottage on camels whose bells jingled softly in the crisp air. The riders wore robes that seemed to be woven from starlight itself, one in deep purple that shifted like the northern lights, another in rich gold that glowed like captured sunbeams, and the third in pristine white that seemed to hold the purity of fresh snow. The leader of the 3 dismounted and approached Baboushka's door. When she opened it, she found herself face to face with a man whose eyes held wisdom gathered from studying the movements of celestial bodies, and whose bearing spoke of kings and palaces far beyond her simple world. He spoke with a voice both gentle and commanding.
"Good evening, grandmother. We are travelers following a star to find a newborn king. We seek shelter for the night and wonder if you might provide us with food and rest."
Baboushka looked at these magnificent strangers, then glanced at her small hut with its simple furnishings. She felt uncertain about hosting such grand visitors in her humble home. She said hesitantly,
"I have only simple fare to offer, some bread and soup a place by the fire, but you are welcome to what I have."
The leader bowed graciously.
"We would be grateful for your hospitality, good mother."
As Baboushka prepared a modest meal for her guests, the second king, whose golden robes seemed to shimmer with their own light, spoke of their journey.
"We have traveled far, following a star that announces the birth of the Promised One. We must not delay, for we carry gifts to lay before the newborn king."
"A newborn king?"
Baboushka asked, drawn in by their words despite herself. The third king, whose white robes seemed to glow in the darkness, spoke.
"Yes, a child born to bring light to the world, peace to the nations, and hope to all people. We carry gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh to lay before him."
Baboushka felt something stir in her heart, a longing she had thought long buried, a sense that something momentous was happening. As she served them, she found herself imagining the child they described, wondering what it would be like to see such a miracle. The leader looked at her kindly and said,
"We must depart at first light to follow the star. Would you come with us, grandmother? Come and see this wonder, this newborn king who'll change the world.
Baboushka glanced around her small hut, at her spinning wheel with its half-finished work, her bread dough still rising, the mending that needed completing, the wood that should be brought in before the cold deepened. She said hesitantly,
I cannot leave now. I have not finished my day's work. Perhaps tomorrow, when my tasks are complete, I could follow your path and catch up to you.
The kings exchanged glances, and the leader spoke again with gentle sadness.
Tomorrow may be too late. The star moves even now, and we cannot delay. But we thank you for your kindness and hospitality. The invitation remains: leave your tasks and come with us to worship the newborn king.
Baboushka looked at her simple hut with its unfinished tasks, then at the star that blazed so brightly above the king's heads, and felt torn between her daily obligations and her sense that something sacred was calling to her. In the end, her habits proved too strong.
I cannot leave tonight. My work is not finished. But tomorrow, when my tasks are complete, perhaps I can follow your path.
The kings bowed courteously and departed into the star-filled night, their camel bells growing fainter until they were lost in the vast silence of the steppe. Baboushka watched until their lights disappeared, then closed her door and returned to her spinning wheel. But sleep would not come that night. She found herself going to the window again and again, looking out at the brilliant star that continued its journey westward. Each time she looked, she felt a deeper pang of regret, a growing sense that she had let something precious slip through her fingers. When morning came, Baboushka hurried through her daily tasks, finishing her spinning, completing her mending, tending to all the work that had seemed so important the night before. But even as she worked, her heart was not in it. She kept glancing out the window at the star, which had moved farther westward, its light now barely visible on the horizon. By the time she finished her work, the kings had not returned. Suddenly, she understood the magnitude of her error. The kings had offered her the chance to witness something divine, to be part of a moment that would echo through history, and she had chosen her daily routine over spiritual calling. She had valued the completion of ordinary tasks more than the holiness of the journey. Without hesitation, Baboushka gathered her warmest clothes and a basket of simple gifts, toys she had made during long winter evenings, bread she had baked, small treasures crafted by her own hands. If she could not join the kings on their journey, at least she could follow their path and offer her own gifts to the newborn king. But when she reached the next village and asked about the kings and their star, she learned that she was too late. They had passed through days earlier, following the star to a distant land. The child they sought had been born and found, worshipped and honored, and the momentous event had already passed into history. Most people would have returned home in disappointment, but something had awakened in Baboushka's heart that would not be silenced. If she could not find the Christ child the kings had sought, perhaps she could find him in other children who needed love and care. And so began Baboushka's true journey. She became a wanderer, traveling from village to village with her basket of gifts, seeking children who needed what she had to offer. To orphans and outcasts, to the poor and forgotten, to any child who needed comfort or joy, Baboushka offered her handmade toys and her grandmother's love. As the years passed and she grew older, Baboushka discovered something wonderful. In every child she helped, she found a glimpse of the divine child she had failed to seek when the kings invited her. In every smile she brought to a lonely face, every toy that brought joy to empty hands, every moment of comfort she provided to those who needed it most, She was indeed worshiping the newborn king, not as he had been in that distant manger, but as he continued to be present in the world through acts of love and service. The Russian people began to tell stories of the mysterious grandmother who appeared each year around Christmas time, bringing gifts to children and disappearing like a blessing into the snowy night. They said she was still seeking the Christ child, and in a way they were right, but they were also wrong because she had found him again and again in every child whose life she touched with kindness. Children would leave out food and drink for Baboushka on Christmas Eve, hoping to glimpse the legendary grandmother who had chosen service over comfort, who had turned her regret into a mission of love. And sometimes on the stillest Christmas nights, when snow fell softly and stars shone bright, they swore they could hear the soft sound of her footsteps and the gentle jingle of toys in her basket as she continued her eternal journey of giving. Baboushka had learned the greatest lesson of all, that while we may miss some opportunities to serve the divine, there are always new opportunities waiting. And sometimes the path we take after our mistakes becomes more beautiful than the original journey we failed to make. She had discovered that the Christ child is not found only in mangers and palaces, but wherever love is needed and service is offered with a willing heart. And so the legend grew and continues to this day, reminding us that it is never too late to begin again, never too late to choose love over comfort, never too late to find the sacred in the simple act of bringing joy to others. For in the end, Baboushka's missed appointment with the kings became her eternal appointment with the King of Kings, served not in a moment of history, but in a lifetime of love,